Welcome to the Horror Friendly Podcast.
It's not over because that bitch is dead.
Let's delve into that a bit deeper.
I'm going to be like the peacekeeper between you two tonight.
Don't fuck with the original.
Yeah, don't fuck with the original.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Horror Friendly Podcast, part of the You Run Podcast Network. My name is Katie, and I am joined by Chantelle.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I've nearly got that down. I can say it with you.
It's like after 9 seasons, you finally got it down.
Finally figured out what you actually say at the beginning of every episode.
I mean, I don't even know, so how can you?
Exactly. I am gonna, every time I open my mouth. Okay, so I got some new lipstick today, if you're on YouTube. So I'm trying it on and I quite like it, but I feel like it's making my mouth look really dark, like every time in between my teeth. It's making the gaps look huge, so I'm not sure how we'll see. Sorry, I was just really distracted while you were doing it, like looking at my teeth. I'm gonna look at you instead of myself.
I think it makes your teeth look really white.
Oh, okay. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yes.
But yeah, I'm gonna have to stop looking at my own mouth while we record this because it's gonna be very distracting.
Distract yourself.
Are we ready for this penultimate episode?
I feel like we're not, but we're going to do it anyway.
I feel like we just have to do it because if we
Yes.
don't, it's gonna take longer.
Yes.
So this week we decided to do the 2018 horror crime, The House That Jack Built. Jack, a psychopath and a serial killer, recounts a series of murders he committed over a 12-year period, which he considers to be a work of art. Katie, your first time watching this?
It was my first time watching this.
First and last?
Possibly first and last, yeah. I'd heard a lot about this film in just from the horror community for sort of the past few years, and about how brutal it is, and how kind of different and unique it is. So I thought, silly me, thought it would be a really good one to cover for the pod. And to be fair, I also went in completely blind. I didn't really know anything about it other than it's about the serial killer called Jack, or Mr Sophistication. So I didn't really know much about it. There's a lot to uncover. But yeah, what about you? Was it your first time?
Yeah, first time and last. It's so long. I think the problem was, when you suggested this, I watched the trailer and it looks really good. Like the way they've advertised it kind of looks a lot faster paced, a lot more sinister. And I think although it had some really sinister moments, a lot of it was also so pretentious. I think I actually did mention it to my mate. I was like, because we're going to be doing this film. And she was like, she'd seen it and she was like, it's quite arty. Which, yes, but I think arty in a bad way.
Yeah, no. I mean, I did a lot of research on this after, because a lot of it just either went over my head or it just wasn't something that I really got on board with. I couldn't, I don't know. There was just a lot of stuff that I just didn't understand.
Well, so this is the thing, because I did a quick bit of research. I didn't have as much time as you. But when it premiered at Cannes, when they did it at the film festival, so over 100 people walked out during one of the scenes because they were just like, no, not okay with that, and walked out. But at the end of it, it then got a 6-minute standing ovation. And when I was looking through some of the reviews, a lot of them were 7 up. So this does seem to be quite light. It had a 60% rating. So I was like, have I missed something? I don't think I have. I think some people just want to be smart, appear cleverer than they are. So they're like, oh yes, I love that arty film.
Yeah. I think it definitely divided audiences when it came out. I was looking on Letterboxd and it was a huge, just divide even with the people I follow. Like some people gave it 5 stars, some people were giving it like 1.5. So I think it is like you kind of either get it or you don't get it. And I don't know though, because I feel like I'm kind of also at the same time I sort of feel like I'm in the middle. Like I got majority of it, I just didn't like it that much. There were bits of it that I definitely did like and enjoyed a lot, but yeah, I think sort of like the second half of the film is where it just kind of lost it for me.
I think that's the thing. Yeah, like I liked some bits. Some bits were really creepy. Other bits, I was like, why? What are you trying to? What? And it's like, yeah, I get it. I get what you're trying to do, but why are you being so pretentious about it? Why are you shoving it down my throat? Why are you? I don't know. It was written as if, oh, I'm smarter than you, and I was like, that's fine. You can be smarter than me. I'm less boring than you.
Well, it's interesting you said that because I didn't know much about this director, Lars Von Trier. I'd heard about him because he directed Antichrist and a few other kind of like arty, difficult subject sort of films. And he's very pretentious, very arty, but people love him. And it's interesting when you were saying about Cannes, the film festival, like the fact that like so many people were praising it because he apparently famously just like used to love that festival.
Right.
And I guess because he got the reception like that. But he is quite a controversial director. And he's been, yeah, there's been a lot of things that have come out about him. He's made some very silly comments, like in Cannes Festival. He kind of made this very bad joke about sympathizing with Hitler and Nazis and things, which got him banned from Cannes Festival.
Too fucking right.
Yeah. And then in the wake of the Me Too movement, Bjork, the singer who worked with him on a film, made some accusations about him as well. But he is one of those directors amongst all of that, a very like controversial character. And people are sort of reviewing it by kind of saying, oh, this kind of film is about him. It's kind of his love letter to, and I'm not, yeah. And people might want to review it that way, and that's fine. But I don't know. I just kind of see him more of the pretentious sort of side of it, to be honest.
Because I did see something like that, and I was trying to find it then, but I couldn't. Where it was like one of the reviews was like, "This is clearly autobiographical," and I was like, "That's fucked up." Like whether whether it is like obviously there's meant to be a second layer, and like, oh, when you strive to succeed. So whether it is that, but it is so fucked up that I'm like, if you genuinely, like, even as a filmmaker, are like, yeah, this is me. I'm this Jack character. Like, apparently he's like, please don't compare me to Jack. I'm like, but if you've done a film where you've basically gone, I'm that character, what do you expect people to do?
Yeah.
He
also seems like that kind of director that would want people to hate it as well. Like he'd probably love the idea of this dividing people, and it's like being such a controversial film. Because it, in other ways it also is. I mean, there's a lot of scenes that are hard to watch.
Yeah.
And they're good. They're really horrific. They're what a horror film should be, kind of thing. But yeah, there's just a lot going on.
But that's the thing again, and I think I've said it for a few films at the moment. I think so many horrors now are trying to do so much. They're trying to, I want to be different. Fine, but you have to find your USP. You have to find your angle and stick with it. And obviously his angle was talking to the devil the entire. Was it the devil or just some dude who worked in hell?
I think it was let me find. I'm just gonna need to get Wikipedia.
Need to get our cheat sheet up.
Yes, bear with. Circles of Hell. He's called Virgil, and Virgil is an actual
demon
person. No, he's an ancient Roman.
And so he's just been in hell a long time.
Yeah, he leads him through the 9 circles of hell. So then Jack then talks about each of his crimes and things. So yeah, Virgil is like leading him to hell basically, but Virgil isn't, I assume, doesn't live in hell himself.
Right. Okay. So yeah, like I kind of,
because Virgil isn't a demon.
Like, I get what they were trying to do, but like, I just think it was shit. And then again, but they also had the arty angle, which like Hannibal's already done. So it was kind of throwing a lot at it. And then like again, it's kind of his conversation with oh, I forget what the character's actual name is, but he kept calling her Simple. And it is almost that where he's like, you're so simple, I'm so smart, and all this. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, is that literally what he's trying to say to his audience? Like, you're so dumb if you don't get this. I'm so smart.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care. Be smarter than me. Because this is stupid.
Yeah. Like, I mean, we'll get onto it later, but I've got quite a bit on like the misogyny in this film as well. And it's kind of like, is Lars Von Trier making a point that like he is trying to be an exaggerated version where like he's not a misogynist and he is portraying, like he's trying to say like this is an extreme version of someone, but
right.
Is he, or is he, I don't know, are they just painting Jack as this misogynist? Or are they trying to give it a deeper meaning? Yeah, but we can go through it. But like, what were your thoughts on the first incident with Uma Thurman? Like, what did you think of that?
To be okay, firstly, I hated that they kept referring to them as incidents, because it's like, if you're not, because you said it, that's literally what the film calls it. But that just bugged me, because one, I was like, we're literally talking about taking a person's life, sometimes several people's, and he's just like, oh, the incident, which I do get is kind of quite a psychopathic thing. But like, he's also supposed to be proud of them. So I was like, so just call them what they are, call them your murder. But anyway, sorry, sidebar. I actually, though, Uma Thurman plays that so well. She fucking sucks. Like, actually wrote down, I think I'd have killed her too. Like, she was so annoying and so demanding that, again, like as an opening scene, I was like, yeah, I kind of get it. But like, you're kind of on his side at that point, because she was just so rude to him. So she had it on the nose. She was right. He was a serial killer. But also she was so fucking rude, so demanding. She was just one of those people who just expects everyone to drop everything for her. And it's like, no, that's not how the world works. Like, he said he had an appointment. Why does it, you're a stranger, why does it matter to you what it is? Like, she she didn't deserve what she got, but I also thought it was ironic that he killed her with something called a Jack. That was very on the nose, but I was like, yes. How did you feel about that?
I thought it was good. I did wonder when I was like, because she was really annoying, like she did suck, and I wondered whether like part of it was in his head, like he was kind of, as he's telling the story, he's making her seem more irritating than she actually was, to kind of make him seem less guilty, maybe. I
was less sympathetic to like what she was going through as well.
Like, oh, she was so awful. I don't know, like maybe it was all in kind of his head of how she is. So that's the only thing with the film, you can't tell sometimes like what actually was real and what wasn't. But obviously, like saying it was real for a moment, like she sucked, and it was interesting that it wasn't that usual stereotype of a first kill where it's like just a random woman or a random person. Like she actually did have lines and she did speak, and you kind of got to know her a bit, like before she died. But I thought she was going to be in it for a lot more than she was, because I mean, it was
Uma Thurman.
But
no, maybe you're right, but also because actually doesn't Verge say it, or Verge says it later. Doesn't Verge say it later on when he's like, you talk really bad about women? Like, do you think all women are stupid? Like, so you could be right. Like, the way he talks about her could be like, oh, she can't even fix her own car. I guess I'll do, like, oh, this dumb woman.
Why are they always so stupid?
Who's stupid?
All the women you kill strike me as seriously unintelligent.
Come on. I've also killed men.
But you only talk about the stupid women. Unless you think all women are stupid.
Well, the stories I've told were selected at random, but...
You feel superior to women and want to brag. It turns you on, doesn't it, Jenk?
No.
Like, she literally could have been asking for help, and he was just like, ugh, she's so beneath me.
Yeah, that's true. It could be that, he just made her seem even worse than she actually was, or something like that. But yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, he does pick up on that. And I do like throughout the film how Verge does like call him out on shit. He's like, oh yeah, look at you. You must be so proud of yourself. And like he kind of does belittle him a bit, which I quite like.
Go Verge.
Yeah,
Although-
we love Verge.
Yeah. So I was like, we'll come to that later. I'm going to get it's a very long film and I'm going to end up jumping all over. So stick more to it. But yeah, I also did kind of like the introduction of the freezer because that immediately answered like all the questions of like, where is he going to hide the bodies? Or, but yeah, so sorry, Uma. I just couldn't believe it. She was gone that quick.
I know. I mean, I don't know how you want to do this exactly. I was thinking we can go through each quote unquote incident and kind of cover.
Yeah.
And I'm sure like we'll get to other stuff around that as well.
Yeah, it's probably the easiest way.
Yeah, because they're like the big things in the film, I suppose.
Yeah.
But
so,
yeah.
although I do love that Uma Thurman's name was Lady 1, Lady 2, and Lady 3. So they didn't actually get names. One is Lady 2 was Claire Miller, as in the character's name. But it is that where like they didn't even name them. They were just there to die.
That's really interesting. It's just like they were that unimportant. Yeah, because they're put as like Jacqueline, simple.
Yeah. But even Jacqueline on IMDb is listed as simple. So like again, they're just not deemed important.
No.
And that shows even in the way they've marketed this. But lady number 2, what did you think of her?
I felt pretty uneasy with that one. Like when Jack knocks on the door and then pretends to be like it's difficult because some of it was kind of comedic in that he was so bad at like lying.
My badge, it's at the silversmith. Yeah, it's at the silversmith. They're shining it up and adding a few additional citations to it. I've been promoted.
Okay.
Right.
Lying?
Like he's just like suddenly changed his mind and changed his career completely. Like, oh no, I'm actually this. I'm actually that.
As it stands, I'm not a police officer.
What?
I'm an insurance agent, lady.
The fact he used her husband's death as like a reason for him to actually enter the house and also this is the other thing, like this is like throughout the film women are kind of portrayed as either like naggy or kind of naive, like these real stereotypes that people have around women. Like she was like, yeah, you can come in, like what's the worst that can happen? Like she literally said that. And I don't think that was put in there. I think that was done on purpose because again it like makes these women seem like just so naive and a lot of women wouldn't be like that.
But it was also like, filmed in the 70s, 80s. So a lot of women at the time still did rely on their husbands or their fathers. So you did rely on a man for your safety, for your income, for everything else, which is why like he, again, like you say, he's preying on the fact that her husband's died, she needs more money. And he's using that against her. I was like, she actually has the best chance of survival out of all of them because she was so adamant to not let him in. Yeah. But it was when it was like, actually, I really need this. And he used that against her. But he was even trying to use, like, I'm a police officer to get in because most women will say yes to authority. Which I say most people will because it's kind of how we're raised. So I thought she was really good in that she was kind of standing up to him without realizing actually how bad he was. And then unfortunately, but it was as well, like he killed her and then was like, oh, here, have some chamomile tea. It's good for you. And then got annoyed when she sat up.
It was weird. Like he was like kind of chaotic with it. It was always like he didn't really know what he wanted to do with her.
No.
But yeah, I thought that was kind of a tough watch. Like there was no music behind it. It was literally just you and like watching it. It was just you in that moment. It was a tough watch because it was also a really long death. So that was difficult. Yeah.
And then he, like you say, got more chaotic and kept going back in to clean the blood. So that, no, like one part of you is like, go, run away. Because again, you're like, am I on Jack's side at this point? Like,
it's weird, isn't it?
Because you're only like, 20, because those two happened quite quickly. And then the third Lady 3 didn't happen for fucking ages. So at this point you are still like, are we on Jack's side? Do we know his backstory? Was why is he killing these women? So it is hard. It's also, yeah, you don't see a lot of films from the killer's perspective.
You don't. And like OCD is kind of an interesting trait to have in a serial killer.
Yeah.
Because it's almost kind of comical that like you want to make this mess and you want to kill these people, but like you're so obsessed with not making a mess. And you do notice that throughout the film, like his OCD becomes less and less and he becomes more clumsy with like his killings. So it's weird that like the more he kills, the less he cares so much.
Which I think was hard because I was like, again, I mean, I don't have OCD. I've worked with people who've had it. And for them, I've never really known their symptoms to like ease up. So I did find that interesting because I was like, again, someone with OCD can absolutely correct me. But I was like, I don't, and again, especially because they were like, they brought in like a cleaning element because obviously OCD does display in different ways. So I thought that was really, yeah, like you say, kind of interesting that they were just like, oh, this is his coping mechanisms. He's just going to kill, and then his OCD is going to get better. And I was like, but would that? What? No, would that? And I'm not sure. Is the honest answer? I'm not a psychiatrist. I can't tell you, but it just seemed a little bit too good just to be like, oh yeah, that. Don't worry about it. Like, no, I'm gonna worry about that.
Yeah. Well, it's ironically, I know we're skipping a tiny bit. We can obviously come back, but like it's so funny how like detailed he is about cleaning the house, but then he clumsily just fucking the body just drags behind him on this truck, and obviously so then her face is just like being torn to pieces. But that is like the messiest. He's literally leaving a trail. It's like the messiest you could possibly be after he spent nearly an hour deep cleaning this house. Like that kind of was funny. Like I have read that some people have found some of this like kind of ironic, like kind of funny.
I actually loved that bit. It was because again, like he opened the van, and at that point, we're like, is she just under a blanket? Like, how has he hidden her? So then when he ties off the rope, I've never seen anything like that in horror. I was like, that's such a genius way to be like, look, my van's empty. But I also think he played it really well in the house where he was like, I'm a civilian. You need to check every inch of this house. And like, he was really kind of playing up to that. I'm just going to piss off this police officer. He knew how to work the police. He really did.
He did. And I think that's also to do with like white male privilege as well, that he was able to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Can you imagine any other race, fucking gender getting away with that? Not a fucking chance. But it was just so funny. And then all of a sudden he just sort of like looked in the window, made sure he wasn't looking. It was great. It was great. And as you say, but then he didn't think about the fact that was going to cause her to bleed. And then, of course, it rained. But I love that, again, Verge calls him out and it's like, maybe a part of you wanted to get caught. Maybe a part of you wanted to leave a trail.
Yeah. Yeah, that I agree. I think that scene was so good. And how just like the David Bowie fame just plays. And that was, I'm pretty sure that was mostly the only music that was in this film at all. So like it was just so funny that there's just David Bowie's song was playing and this body was being dragged. It was just insane. But like, how bad was this policeman as well? Like not questioning why Jack's like, oh, well, maybe the door's open. And he just opened it and then wasn't like, well, how did you know that? Like there wasn't any probing.
Again, was it like early 70s police work was kind of
I keep forgetting that, like
but also because he was like, you can't pick that up, and I was like, were fingerprints a thing back then? Like when did fingerprinting become a thing?
Good question. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good point.
What should be like the 50s? When did fingerprint? 1905. I take it back, they've been around for a long time.
How are we supposed to know?
How are we supposed to know? But you always look back and hear like stories from like the 50s and the 60s where like the killers are still like not got caught, the cold cases that are slowly being closed because they didn't have like fingerprints. So maybe it wasn't in every station. Maybe he did know, and that's why I told him to put it down. Maybe that's why Jack picked it up, because he was like, now you've seen me touch it.
Yeah, like, oh no, my fingerprint's going to be all over this now.
I forgot to clean this, so I'll just pick it up and touch it.
But yeah, you're right. Like, I think maybe, the policeman being kind of, again, naive. All these naive people around him, like, is also to do with the time that it was set. And also, I think how Jack kind of sees them all.
Yeah.
But yeah.
But like we see another police officer later that he's just completely throws off, and it's like by confessing, and you're like, what? Like we'll come back to that, but again, you're just like, it's just a pattern throughout.
It's fucking mad, that bit. Yeah,
It's
it's
crazy.
insane.
We'll come to that, but just while we're on cops.
Yeah. Okay, so the third quote unquote incident I think is one of the hardest to watch.
This is the one where over 100 people walked out because it was killing children with a hunting rifle.
So that was the part that they were like, nope.
Because this is the thing, you go into horror, you kind of expect violence, you expect death, even violence against women, but once there's violence against children, and this was merciless. There was no fucking reason. Also, were they portrayed as his children?
No, I believe it was like, we kind of got an insight into his life. I think it was just his girlfriend.
Right,
his girlfriend had the kids. I don't think they were his kids.
Because I thought it said my family. It was like my family were running out of order. But as you say, it could have been like his stepchildren or his girlfriend's children he was looking after.
Yeah, I didn't get the impression they were his kids. Maybe just in kind of like a sick way. He just likes saying that. Yeah, maybe we don't know how long he's been around for. Maybe he kind of did see them as his family. We don't know like when exactly this was, how long it's been going.
I think he was trying different things as well. So he was like trying to be a family man.
Yeah.
And he was just like, I've had enough, I'm going to kill him.
Yeah.
It's so fucked up.
I enjoyed it though, because I think like enjoyed it is maybe
you're fucked up.
That's definitely the wrong way to describe it. I didn't enjoy it obviously, but I thought it was a great part in the film because it really kind of emphasized how fucking depraved and an awful human being that he is. And it kind of I kind of praise sort of Lars Von Trier for kind of taking it that step further, because a lot of people don't do that. It was extremely graphic, it was extremely hard to watch, but that's kind of what can make a really good horror.
So as much as I agree with you, I think it suddenly went from like, oh, we're hunting, to like really fucking dark. I think it was quite clever, like the analogy of the deers. That was very clever, but obviously as soon as he's explaining that, you're like, he's fucking, like, you realize what he's about to do.
God, I
think for me, one bit I didn't realize until they were laying in that grave was that he kneecapped the little boy.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, like when they were laying down, and because they held that frame for quite a while, but you could see blood like where his knee had been blown out, and that for me was, I don't know why that, like kneecapping him before he killed him was so horrific. And
it is, it's like maiming him before he dies.
Like, again, it's a fucking kid, and he's like, oh, I had to slow him down. I'm like, it's a fucking kid, like you could have just left them alone. But
that's, I guess that's the thrill, isn't it? And also like the idea of like when you're saying about doing it like with like the hunting analogy, because the idea of hunting is so fucking unfair anyway, because you are obviously you have the
rifle.
You have the upper hand, so it's not a fair game. It's not a fair thing. So it's not like they even had a lot of like space or time to run. So all of it was just totally unfair. It was inevitable that they were going to die.
Well, she had 12 seconds.
Yeah.
But as you say, like even figuratively, metaphorically, like, but literally he had the upper ground.
Yeah.
And the thing is, though, in that whole scene as well, he looks like he's so enjoying himself. He even sits with her as well, like, making her feed her dead son, the apple pie. And then being like, today's been a good day.
This has been a good day. An excellent day.
Oh, I wanted to slap him so fucking much. I think it's really hard again, because I think she was so in shock. But every part of me, I was like, I want to kill him. Like at that point, I was like, if I was that mum, I think when he was like, feed your son apple pie, like, what else have I got to lose? Both my sons are here dead. I think I'd have just attacked him. And again, that's coming from someone watching this as a film, not being there in reality. But I think if I had nothing to lose at that point, I'd have just gouged his fucking eyes out.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. Yeah, and don't get me wrong, it wasn't an enjoyable watch, but I
No.
think I just kind of appreciated that, like, we are watching a horror film, and that it did push the boundaries a little bit. I think that's what, I guess, from a horror fan perspective, that's kind of like what I appreciated it for. But it was hard. It was hard when they were all sat with that picnic. It was hard not to look away.
Yeah, it was hard. It was gross.
It was gross.
But
and just like the idea of like propping them up, and
I just remembered The Wire, where he makes the frozen kid smile.
Yeah.
And again, you see the kid like at the end when he's got like, I think it's when he's lined up all the men and he's got the little kid, and you can keep seeing him in the background, and it's just so fucked up because it's a fucking kid. How was he not caught? Because again, like, boyfriend and husband is like suspect number one. How was he not caught?
I don't know. It's weird. They didn't really go into that, and it would have been kind of cool to sort of see that perspective a bit more, like how exactly he covered his tracks after that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think as well, like for me, it was like kind of the lack of music throughout this whole thing, but even particularly this scene, and them just sitting and having a picnic as if it was just a totally normal scene in a film, and there was no music to kind of give it a sort of scarier vibe, because you didn't need it. It was so horrific on its own. You didn't fucking need anything else.
It's a really hard watch.
Yeah, and that made it harder, I think, for me, because it almost felt like more realistic that there wasn't anything in the background.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was hard. It was hard. I can understand why people would have walked out and people wouldn't have wanted to continue on with that. But I can also see from a horror fan's perspective that it's good for a horror film, I suppose. This kind of
I know what you mean. It definitely pushes the boundaries.
Yeah.
I think as well, like, even by this point, though, I was getting bored, and I know we're literally talking about deaths, but like the long bits in between were really dragging for me. And again, I've said it so many times before, I'm not a big fan of like long horrors. But when it was because it was just like dragging, so I think if it had dragged and dragged and dragged and then got to this bit, I think I'd have been in that crowd to walk out and be like, do you know what, you're just going to try and disgust me and gross me out. Like, I get why people were like ready to walk by that point.
That's a good point, actually, because it's not actually all about that scene. It's about kind of the stuff before that as well, like where it was just being dragged out, and you kind of think, is it really worth staying for now that I've seen this horrible scene? Like, is it worth me carrying on?
Yeah, is it going to get worse?
Yeah.
So it's like,
because
they don't normally peak in the middle, so it's like, we've got 2 more incidents to go. We know that from the beginning, so fuck, how much worse are we going to get? I can't remember if it was before this bit or after this bit where it's like the lamppost analogy. It might have been before this one.
Possibly, could have been before, only just before though, I think.
Yeah, but I thought that was quite good, because again, it is trying to explain to you like a psychopath's mentality, or a serial killer, sorry, but also at the same time, I don't know, it's just an analogy I hadn't heard before, and it was quite a good way of sort of like explaining that like want and desire for anything in life, really, but again, mostly in his position for murder. So I thought that was quite good, but then we see it used on kids, and it's like, oh, now you're a cunt.
yeah I think I mean, it's fucked. It is fucked. So 4th incident. So the woman is called Jacqueline, but he ever so lovingly calls her Simple.
And he turns up on a crutch. Which was definitely a shout out to Ted Bundy, which is, again, can we stop shouting out fucking serial killers in horror films? Like, I understand it, and I understand the references, and I get it, but like, stop giving them credit.
Yeah, that's so funny, Tal, because how funny that I bypassed Ted Bundy and went straight to fucking Buffalo Bill, when he's like...
And you know what? That's better. That's what we should be doing. We should be able to associate it with another horror character, not a real person, because yes, they did it, but
Yeah.
they get enough fucking acknowledgement. They don't need
Yeah.
it.
Well, you're right, because Matt Dillon, who plays Jack, was heavily influenced by Ted Bundy. So yeah,
You can
fucking
see
spot
that.
on.
You can see that as well, because in a lot of like the scenes where he's younger and they sort of go back, they've obviously tried to make him very good looking. Well, I know, but he's a good looking guy.
No,
but
he is.
they've made him very good looking, and he's very charming. Again, he gets away with it with the police, so you can see that like he is pulling that off, and people trust him and let him in their house, and it's like fuck. Kill him.
Yep.
I feel so bad for I feel bad calling her Simple, so Jacqueline, because as well, like when he first turns up and he does the whole thing on the phone, and then in the voiceover he says that he like really loves her,
Yeah.
and then he treats her like that, and I was like, this is why there's so many toxic relationships, is because you get all
he's
this
like a
mixed-
full-blown toxic boyfriend, like narcissist, manipulative, like he's just awful. And I felt quite nervous in this scene, because I was like, anything can fucking happen now, like anything can happen in this moment. It wasn't what I didn't think what was going to happen was going to happen. I thought it would be a lot quicker. I thought that he would kill her quite quickly, but then this again kind of really dragged on, and really, it was really kind of like, it was like watching her just slowly, I don't know, it wasn't a quick death.
No, but as soon as he drew on her boobs, I knew she was going to lose them. Like as soon as he did that, I knew what was coming, and I was like, fuck. And like you say, it was like another 15-20 minutes later, because they just dragged it out and gave her that false hope that the policeman was going to help. And then he literally was like, oh yeah, I've killed 60 people, 61 people, arrest me. And he was just like, you two need to stop drinking, take him upstairs. Like, no, but what, no. And I just
and then she comes up for help, and the police officer's like, have you been drinking? And she's like, well, yeah, I have, but he is saying these things, like,
yeah, but it doesn't matter. And then he's even like, everything she said is true.
Everything that this woman has said is true. I have killed 60 people. 60 people! I'm a serial killer.
Like, he knows how to play the system, and they don't even care, and just let her get murdered.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So fucked up. Yeah, and it goes back to how like Jack is getting lazier. Like he isn't hiding bodies. Like you saw that little sequence in the motel where he was just at this point just had the body over his shoulder and was just walking around with it. Like he was so careful before, and he was getting, his OCD was going, he was getting cockier, like more overconfident with this. So he knew that he was stuck with Jacqueline, who he thought was simple, who he thought no one's going to come to her fucking rescue. No one in these block of flats gives a shit. So I'm just going to fucking confess, because no one's going to catch me.
And then scream out the window. Because unfortunately, he was right. No one did care. No one did come running. And even as he said, he's like, some neighbors you have. And it's like,
I know.
Fuck.
He's very clever, and he's very like cunning. So he knows.
He understands human behavior very well. But it's funny when you say about that like montage of him going up and down the stairs, because there's a woman in the window. I think it was a woman. There was a person in the window who I thought was watching him, but doesn't react, doesn't do anything. There's like a silhouette, and it seems to be by the window for like the whole time. And it's like, again, somebody's taken out the freezer to come and pose. And it is like you say, like, I don't know if it's because he got cocky, or if just he wasn't getting caught, and he was like, whether he wanted to slightly get caught, whether he just was like, oh, they actually just don't care, I'm just going to do what I want. It's so fucked up.
Yeah. And like you say, he was fucking right.
Yeah. And then it's like she finds the phone wire's been cut, and then he's got her keys, and again it's that controlling fucking abuse where she can't get out of her own house. And like, how fucking terrifying to be trapped in your own house, knowing you're about to die. Like, she knows she's not gonna be okay when he's mocking her to like scream.
Oh, it's awful. Yeah, I felt like that was quite a difficult watch as well. Like they all are, but I felt that one Yeah, it was hard. And I got to give credit to Riley Keough, who plays Jacqueline, because she's like a proper scream queen in her own right. She's been in so many other horror films. Like, she's awesome. She's also Elvis Presley's granddaughter. So I'll
no way.
just, yeah, she's part of the Presley family. But yeah, she is awesome in her own right. So it's really cool that they got her on board with this. I didn't expect to see her in it at all.
No.
So that was kind of interesting. But I like now she is playing parts that aren't, she isn't just the victim in, like, she's I'm glad that she's got sort of meatier roles now.
But that's interesting actually that you say that, because that was what did he say to her? Why is it always the man's fault?
Why is it always the man's fault?
And I was literally there like, what do you mean? Why is it your fault? You're the holding the fucking knife. And he's like, why are women always the victim? I'm like, again, you're holding the fucking knife. You're making her a victim. You are at fault here. How can you, in any what fucking way, think you're in the right? Like,
he's detestable, isn't he?
Absolutely fucking vile. Fucking vile. Just, yeah. And again, I was like, oh, what fucking mental aerobics did he have to do to figure out that he was in the right here?
Yeah.
Psychopaths, man.
Do you think he was almost getting at, like, oh, women are always the victims, so it leads men to do stuff like this?
Yeah, I don't know if it was that, where it was like, you're making me do this. Look what you made me do. Because society has called me bad, so I'm going to be bad. I don't know if he was trying to do that, or if he was just trying to belittle her and make her feel like, well, you think you're a victim, I'll make you a victim. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
I would say
whatever he was saying, it was fucking vile.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's listened to too many men with microphones, but that wasn't really a thing in the 70s.
No. Too many Andrew Tates.
No, it was and then he just put her boob under the windscreen wiper.
Yes.
How did the other two people not see that? Like, how did they not come and see that and be like, what the fuck?
I think it was just that kind of area where no one gave a shit.
Maybe, I was gonna say, or they saw it, and as you said, we're like, well, I'm not gonna deal with this because this is not getting involved. And that's how he kept getting away with it, because people were too scared and didn't want to.
Yeah. But that was kind of like the final insult, that he just put that on the car as if to say, I fucking did it. Look,
Yeah,
I did it. Like, you missed this opportunity and now this woman's dead. He's almost kind of putting the blame on someone else.
Yeah,
by saying, like, look what you did. Look what you made me do. He didn't fucking believe her.
Why
so
didn't you help her?
Yeah.
Actually, was it the police car he put it on, or was it? It was just a random car, wasn't it?
It was a police car.
Was a police car?
Yeah.
Oh, he's such a cunt.
And he still didn't get caught.
But at that point, he is calling out the police and like, yeah, you should have fucking helped. Where were you? Which I kind of love that. I kind of love that he's like, policeman, do your job. But at the same time, I'm like, well, stop killing. But also the fact that he made her other boob into a purse. So fucked up. And just using it. Like, nobody noticing. And he's just using it day to day. So fucked up.
Awful.
I hate him so much.
Yeah, I hate him too. Yeah, I really wasn't. There was nothing. It's really interesting. There was no redeeming quality about him whatsoever.
Yeah, no.
Because even like some of the shit that we've covered, that you can find something. Like, we were talking about Buffalo Bill earlier. Like, you can find something. He's very like theatrical, and that's quite fun to watch. Whereas this guy, there's literally nothing.
I also think the thing was, obviously, with Silence of the Lambs is the film is about Buffalo Bill, but it's about catching him. Whereas this was just us watching the most horrific person literally get away with murder, torture, vile fucking acts, and nobody doing anything, the police not doing anything, and for no reason. And I think that's the thing. Although Buffalo Bill, they did kind of give him a reason, but also was about catching him and bringing him to justice. This wasn't. This was just like Verge was going to come and give him justice, but did he really?
Yeah.
We'll come to that. But I think that's what made this so hard. Is you're like, there's no redemption for this guy. There's no arc. There's no reason he's doing anything other than he's a piece of shit.
No, and you're so right. Like, he doesn't really ever get his comeuppance. Like, nothing ever really. I mean, obviously, we see what happens to him at the end, but like, everything like up until that point, it's all on his terms, and like you say, we're seeing it from his perspective.
Yeah.
So nothing bad is essentially really happening to him in any of it.
And it's not enough.
No. Ugh.
Should we go on to, well, before we get to incident number 5, we have another long drag of like they start, him and Verge at like one point, it's like a PowerPoint presentation where they're just talking to each other. We're not even watching a film anymore, we're watching Grapes, and then they're discussing art, and again it's fucking pretentious.
Yeah.
And it's like, we get it, you know how wine is made, what? And then it's again another metaphor, and I'm like, pick one metaphor.
Yeah.
You don't need, we're already 2 hours in, we don't need, actually I don't even think we were at this point. I was like, how you just fucking what? No, stop it, go back to the film. Really dislike that bit.
Yeah, me too. I think that just went on for too long. Like you said, we've got it. It could have just been like a couple of minutes if he did want to add something like that in there.
Yeah.
It didn't have to go on and on. And yeah, those were sort of the parts I didn't really get. Like I was just like,
yeah,
fine,
you're clever, I get it.
Yeah.
But they really brought the movie down for me.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
So do you think from like this moment on, you were kind of just, you'd mentally checked out?
Absolutely. Like, absolutely mentally checked out. I tried to come back in. I like there were bits. Okay, yeah, it wasn't completely over for me. It did bring me back before I dropped out again, because then we have incident number 5.
Yes. I would say I thought this was kind of different, that it was 6 men in the freezer. I think, you know, obviously we've seen children, but the majority of the victims have been women.
But I think Verge points that out. He's like, oh, you only kill women. He's like, I have killed men. I have killed children. And it's that he's like, oh, and that's when he's like, oh, but you talk so down to them. Are you strong? Do you think you're stronger? And then he's the example of like, oh, but I killed 6 men with 1 bullet.
Yeah.
But like, does he?
Yeah. Well, because no, he does. Yeah, he gets like caught by Verge, I thought. So he doesn't even end up doing that.
So to be fair, I liked the whole bit where he didn't have the right bullet. And then he went on like, and like, he almost started to, well, he did crack. But again, like, I can't remember the guy's name in the weapons shop who was like, started questioning him. And he's like, why are you questioning me? So I was like, well, he's going to call the police on you. Then his friend in a caravan was also going to, like, SP was going to call the police on him. So it all started to crumble.
Yes.
And then he finally gets back to test this, like, whatever he called it, motherload bullet. That wasn't what it was called, but I can't remember. And then Verge suddenly there. I'm like, so was Verge like calling him because he got killed by the police? Was that how he ended up like jumping in the gutter? I didn't get it.
No, I think like, yeah, it's hard to know what actually happens at that point. You're right. Like, I don't know whether that means that he's dead already. They shot him because he does shoot through the police officer who like gets through the wall. Like he does shoot at something. So is that supposed to be that he shoots Jack?
I just remembered as well, because that's the other thing. Again, like we said, there's too much in there. And this whole story, he's also building a house.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Is the title of the film, and yet so irrelevant to the film. It got knocked down 3 times. Who gives a fuck? Like, we literally haven't seen it. So what the fuck was that? I thought from the title that the house was always going to be made of bones. I thought that's why they were in the freezer, because he was going to put them in the structure of the house. So the house had fuck all to do with it, other than he made a human pyramid at the end, which if those 6 men were still alive, they watched him do.
Yeah.
But I didn't see them in the structure, but he may have taken them apart at that point.
And so that would fit what you're saying correctly, that if he'd already died and this was all happening, then obviously the men would have been removed from that scene. There wouldn't be anyone there to witness it, obviously, because he's dead.
Yeah.
And he's with Verge now. So maybe he was dead and this was his... Yeah, you don't know. I don't think you're supposed to know. I think it's meant to be kind of like, you're meant to be left with a lot of questions. I think, well, I was left with a lot of fucking questions anyway.
So many questions.
Yeah. So no, you're right. I don't understand that bit. I don't understand I get it. Well, I don't get it, but like, you know, all the pretentiousness of building this house full of his victims and then walking in and suddenly he's on his way. Like, that all seems very afterlifey. It seems like it would
Yeah.
be, yeah.
Otherwise, imagine being the police officer that finds it.
Yeah.
But also very Hannibal,
Very.
which is what you actually said to me. You were like, there are some very Hannibal parts in this. And I was like, again, it's almost copied quite a bit from Hannibal, I think. But yeah, like I'd have preferred him to have built a house out of bones. And then somehow he got caught. I don't know. I just thought I expected so much more from this film,
Yeah. No, that's
especially
completely
involving
fair.
the house.
And all of the sort of stuff from this, yeah, it was knackering to watch. It didn't make any sense, and I just didn't get into it.
No.
So from the kind of point where he meets Verge is where, like, I'll agree with you, Tell, like I mentally checked out too.
Yeah, like when they're walking through this, I think it was the sewer, but there was clean water, and then he starts repeating himself. And I was just like, what the fuck is, I just didn't care.
Yeah.
I was like, you need to wrap it up now. And I thought that bit was going to last like 5 minutes, not another like 20. So fuck me, just end.
Yeah. I know, when I saw how long I had left still, I was like, what can possibly happen? Like, he's in hell now, like, or he's heading that way. Like,
also, sorry, but that was also so fucking stupid because Verge is there, like, I'm going to walk you through the 9 circles of hell, but he's not getting punished. So he's openly admitting to all these heinous acts that he's done. The point, and again, whether was it the devil, like, I know we're saying Verge, but was Verge just dropping him off in hell, or was Verge actually supposed to be punishing him? Because I thought that was the point of hell, was to punish the murderers, not just be like, oh, welcome, congrats, have a tour. Like, what the fuck? Like, really pissed me off. I was like, fuck.
I think he was leading him to hell, and then, like, he was obviously, was it that he was given an option where he could
Well, it was the broken bridge, wasn't it?
yeah, sorry, there was a broken bridge, and then he sort of sees the stairway on the other side.
And it's like, what's over there? It's like, oh, that gets you out of hell. So it's like, oh, cool. So if he does get there, he gets to go to heaven. I'm assuming that's the other option, or does he go back to Earth?
Yeah, no, I assume it's, well, yeah, it just says leads the way out to hell, so who fucking knows?
And then he spends age. Oh my god, we watched him go fucking climbing for, not claving. What's it called? Oh my god, there's a word for it. I know this.
Like when you're bouldering, like
Bouldering.
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched him boulder for fucking ages. That dragged.
Yeah.
And then he finally fell. And again, but I was like, that's so okay, cool. So he burns very quickly in lava. That's not punishment.
I know, it's crazy. Like, oh, I know, all of this is just so dumb. Like, I just didn't expect this to be part of the film at all. I don't know what I was expecting, but it wasn't this.
Absolute shit. Sorry, like, some people are going to be like, oh, you missed the point of the ending. Yeah, maybe I did. Maybe I didn't fucking get it. And or maybe, again, like, I know there's not always a happy ending to a horror, but this just felt like there was no ending, and also no, yeah, like you say, he got no comeuppance. He got no punishment. He got nothing, no consequences for his actions. Oh, he died and went to hell. It didn't look like he was having a bad time, if I'm honest.
No, like, yeah, no, there's no satisfying ending, really. There's nothing that happens to him at the end where you're like, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's just shit. Sorry. really didn't like it, especially the ending.
Fair.
And that bit, and again, I think they were discussing art in hell. I was like, what is hell an art gallery? Like, what is happening? Also, I did make one more note, which is, why is some of it literally documentary style? And I'm going to assume it's because when they were like caving, honestly, hell just looks like a fucking adventure. You got bouldering down there, you got caving. But when they're like going through there, it was so handheld. But there was a bit of it like in the freezer as well. So I did wonder why. I think when they were in the water is because you could have only held the camera up and not kept it very steady. But some of it, was shot almost like documentary style. Yeah. And I was like, what? What's happening?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, I wrote that down as well, because I was just like, this is so weird. Like, even with the opening scene with Uma Thurman, it was like shot, very much documentary style. I think most of it was, until that weird bit at the end when it was sort of filmed more like a film. Yeah, that was a strange choice. And I
Yeah.
don't know whether it was meant to make you feel like you were sort of kind of part of it a bit more, like you were kind of,
Yeah.
it wasn't so sort of like,
Bit seasick, really.
yeah, like, yeah, it was more kind of natural. It wasn't like you were watching a film. It was maybe to make it look a bit more realistic.
Make you feel like you're in the water with them.
Mm.
It's just, yeah, odd choice. What other
Yeah.
notes did you have? You said you had loads.
Well, a lot of mine have been said. I
Okay.
did have a little bit on just kind of like, I mean, we have touched on it, to be fair.
Mhm.
So there's not a lot, but just kind of like the film and the misogyny that sort
Yeah.
of comes with it. Obviously, I've mentioned like Lars Von Trier has had some controversies, with obviously Bjork accusing him of certain things on set and things like that. And this happened before this film came out. So, which is quite interesting. So it does make you think, is he saying these things? Is he making Jack this way to make a point, to make him seem like a exaggerated version of himself?
Yeah.
Don't know. And obviously, like we've said about how most of the women are portrayed in this film as kind of like naggy, stereotypical stereotypes. And, was this done intentionally? We're always victims. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, we've touched on a lot of it, just kind of, again, like how it's always the man's fault, women are always the victims and things. Yeah, so we've touched on a lot of it throughout the film, but I think there must be some sort of link between what happened with the director and how Jack's character is portrayed. Like, I think there's some sort of mix, like he's trying to make some kind of point, some clever point. Yeah.
And this is, yeah. It's really, yeah, it's hard when they've got allegations because you can't say they did or didn't because we don't know for sure. But I'm gonna possibly go out on a limb and say, yeah, maybe there's some hidden messages in here.
I think so. I think given his, like, not just with the rise of the Me Too movement, how he was accused of certain things, but also he just has been controversial before, making stupid comments at Cannes, and just like, yeah, just being a bit of a not so
twat.
Yeah, not so nice guy.
Just being an absolute twat.
Yeah.
I'll say it. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, fair. I mean, a lot of people say that like this probably isn't the best like first Lars Von Trier film to watch. I'm not educated. I've not seen any of his other films, so me and you are only going on this one. But
yeah. However, unfortunately, given what he sounds like as a human, I don't know if I want to go and support any more of his work. So
fair.
Yeah. And this wasn't a great impression. So I'm like,
no. I was tired after this film. I mean, you just finished it.
I know, I've had a really busy day and I had to watch it later than expected. So I was like, I started to be like, let's get it over with. My partner was like, "Wow, you sound so excited." I was like, I didn't like the film. And I also hate it when I don't actually have time to put any of the research in. So I'm very grateful that you did this week because we needed some of that. But also I wouldn't have known that the director was a twat. So I'm just gonna keep calling him that now. Yeah. I'd rather get proven wrong on that one, but unfortunately it doesn't always sound that way.
No, definitely not. But yeah, weird. So just not, when I thought of covering this, I'd heard so many good things, or just kind of at least interesting things.
Yeah.
And I wasn't familiar with the director. I'd heard of him, but I'd not watched any of the stuff. So that was kind of my reason why I wanted to cover it this week. But a very different film for me and you to cover, but
again, as we said, like the trailer did look really good. And again, it was a bit different, but also that is one thing we haven't said actually. Each of his 5 incidents, his 5 figures were very different to each other. And again, I don't know if that's something I like or dislike, because I kind of liked that they were trying different things, but also typically a serial killer has a pattern. So this, again, almost feels like throwing too much at it.
Good point.
Where actually they could have just had a film about a serial killer trying lots of different ways to kill people rather than building a house in the process and other shit that we've forgotten about, grapes.
I guess on the other side of that, does it make him more of a threat because there's no one that is safe from him?
True. True, especially when he cleans up so meticulously.
Well, fucking clearly. I mean,
Which does bring us quite nicely onto our question. However, this is a bit of a tough one this week, as it feels like victim blaming a little bit. But do we think we would survive Jack? I forgot your surname. Jack.
Mr Sophistication, or
Oh,
whatever he
Mr.
likes
Sophistication.
to call himself.
Which again, so pompous.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Actually, that is one thing when serial killers, and they do it in films sometimes, where like serial killers try and give themselves a name.
Yeah.
And then I love it when, so like again, Silence of the Lambs, or not Silence of the Lambs, sorry, but in like Red Dragon, where he's like, I'm Red Dragon, and the newspapers are like, so the Tooth Fairy. And I think that's so much funnier when newspapers are like, what if we just call him Mr. Small Dick, right? Rather than Mr. Sophistication. Like, don't fucking praise them. Like, make them feel small. They might kill more people. It might backfire. Maybe check that with a psychologist before newspapers start printing that thing. But again, if it's like feeding their ego, don't feed their fucking ego.
It's to do with like the media and make people reading things like Jack the Ripper. It's such a thing that's going to draw you to it. But it sounds like a fucking badass horror film. But this was a real person that like
But Jack the Ripper, that's how he signed his letters as well. So like he named himself. And again, it's so like, can we just call them pathetic?
Yeah.
This pathetic, weak murderer?
Yeah.
I feel like you can only do that once they're caught. Because again, like if you keep winding them up, they may just go on a murder spree.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a hard one. They're like, I just want to antagonize. I'm also probably gonna die.
Well, very quickly before we get onto that, I'm so sorry. I just thought of something else after
I took us off track already. Don't worry.
No. After we mentioned Mr. Sophistication, the one bit I did really like was when he was, well, I say like it was all like a disturbing scene, but when he was piling up the bodies and taking photos of them and like positioning them in certain ways and then signing off the photo as Mr. Sophistication. Like, again, another point where like, do you want to get caught, Jack? Like, do you want, he's obviously like teasing the people with some sort of hint that he's around, but like, is he asking to get caught?
But then again, it also gave us that backstory of him taking photos as a kid and the whole farmer thing. And I was like, what's that got to do with anything? I don't know.
Yeah, and just like quickly showing that like, this standard typical serial killer childhood who used to like mutilating animals or killing animals, like that's a very typical thing in serial killers where they would like, do whatever. And apparently Peter got involved in that because a lot of people reported that and they actually praised the scene because they were like, it's so realistic that it's fine to go ahead and put that out there because people can see what people actually do.
It's it is fucking scary. It is weird as well how there are like some really early, everyone's like, oh yeah, but how would we know if they're going to be a serial killer? I'm like, well, there are some early signs.
Oh, for sure.
Do have patterns which psychologists have now kind of picked up on. But yes,
but sorry, tangent.
No, it's absolutely fine.
This is a really difficult one to answer. I mean, I think sometimes with some films we cover, it just can't really be answered, but I would say no, because like he did kill the majority of the people that we saw on screen. And he was clever and he was cunning, he was manipulative. And as you say, in that day and age, things were different.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to say no on this one.
Yeah, I think it's hard depending on like which incident you're involved in. Because again, it's really easy to be like, I wouldn't let him in my house, but again, he's preying on your weaknesses.
Exactly.
Also, I do not think he was going to leave her doorstep if she didn't let him in. I think he would have barged his way in.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay. And they were clearly in some sort of like tumultuous relationship because she kind of let him in and then was upset about something, and he was like comforting her. So if you're in that situation yourself, you are just going to let him in, and you're not going to be like, oh, he's dangerous, because they've clearly had a relationship for some time.
Even like victim number 2, like she let him in because he was like, oh, I can double your income, and it's like, well, sorry. But again, I do not think he was going to leave her porch. I think he was going to burst his way in if she kept saying no. So I think the only one, as I said, like number 3, I get it's so hard because I think in that state you would be in so much shock and so much like sorrow and just horror. It probably would be hard to act, but I also feel like a small part of me would just not care about my own life and just attack him. So yeah, I don't think I'm surviving this one.
No, I don't think so. Oh, well, so on that note, I know it's not going to be good, but how many spookies are we giving The House That Jack Built? And what is your favorite spooky moment? We also have Charlie's score.
We do. Do you want to start with
spooky
hers
moments.
while I have
Let's
a think? Because
let's
I
start with
always
hers.
forget.
Let's definitely do that. So Charlie's favorite spooky moment is when his girlfriend tries to call the cops, but the line is cut, and then it all sorts of unfolds in front of her. So yeah, we spoke about that earlier. That was a pretty scary moment. Because that's when you realize that she really is fucked, and he's lying on the sofa like pretending to be all vulnerable, and like that's just gross. And she is giving it a 2.5 out of 5.
So I'd have been interested actually to hear why Charlie gave it 2.5. Because I say Charlie can stomach a longer film.
Yeah.
So she may have found this easier than I did. Because I think I'm only going to give it a 1, which I gave Winnie the Pooh last week. So Jack, you're not doing better than Winnie the Pooh, but for very different reasons. I just think it's too fucking long, too pretentious. And again, as I've said for a few films recently, trying to do too much. Like, do something well rather than lots of things half-assed. And I think, and again, don't patronize your audience. And again, like some people are going to be like, oh, you're just not smart enough. I got it. Good for you. But okay, then tell me what the fuck was happening in hell? Like, why was he not being punished? That's like the one basic thing we all know about hell. If you're so smart, tell me that. Because I generally do want to know, to be fair. I'm half being a twat and half like I really want to know. But I think my spooky moment, it might actually be the house, like the house built out of bodies. One, because again, I think it was so fucking irrelevant to the rest of the film. It was just like, oh yes, remember that house you were going to build? Let's do it with these materials. Yeah. But I think it was that kind of like, it was very Hannibal, which I do love Hannibal. So I think it was that. Yeah, I think there was some really. I think the thing is, it's hard to have like a favorite moment in this because some of them, they were hard to watch. They weren't just like scary; they were hard. So I think that bit was actually kind of like quite shocking. And I did love the SFX kind of involved in that. And again, as I said, the kid that was like stuck smiling, like there were some really gruesome bits in there, which were quite good to look at. So I'm going to go with that. What about you?
Nice. So I'm going to give it 2 spookies out of 5. One more than you, just because I think I enjoyed some bits a little bit more. I think like the real horrific moments, I think made up for a lot of the pretentious stuff to me. I wouldn't come back to this film in a hurry if ever again. It was really tiring, like very mentally draining to watch. But the horrific parts and the parts that made it a solid thriller horror, I think were good. So that's why I'm giving it a 2. And I think my favorite moment is it's gross, but when obviously the woman is dragged all the way. And then you obviously see her face all caved in, like she doesn't have a face anymore. But my actual favorite bit, it's not so much a spooky moment, but when the rain just comes down and just washes away the trail. And you just almost kind of laugh because you thought, fuck you, you've just gone away with that, like scot-free. And that was just a really effective moment because I just thought like, oh, you know, is this showing the moment that he's about to get caught? And it wasn't. So yeah.
I think, to be fair, actually, I think I agree with you because that one was just fucking brilliant. And 2, at that point, you're still trying to decide if you're on his side or not.
Yeah.
But also, I know what you mean about a 2. I always feel like 1 is too mean, but because some of the kills are fucking great, but I do feel like I'm just not going to watch this again, which is why I'm going so low. I feel like I have to defend that I'm so low.
Yeah, that's fair.
But amazing. That was the House That Jack Built episode. Check us out next week for our season finale. Like us, subscribe, follow, drop us a comment, message, and say hi, because we do love it. And until then, bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't
die.
Oh, Jack's such a twat.
Fuck you, Verge.
Fuck you, Verge.